Good evening. Hey, Dr. Howe, man, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I figured I just start like that. I had to get my thoughts right. You know how you got thoughts all in your head. So I figured what better way to just go ahead and get those thoughts out than to just say, "Hey, Dr. Howe, how, how are you on tonight?"
I
Um,
am doing great, my friend.
Good, good. To our listening audience and to those who are watching, we welcome you to another episode of Relate to This. Our show is brought to you by MEI, Making Education Intentional. Let me repeat that one more time. MEI, Making Education Intentional. You know, kids are just now going back to school for the year, the last couple of weeks, and they're getting that education. We're making education intentional, not just for kids, but for adults alike, for communities, for churches, for businesses. I mean, MEI is vast, it's opening doors, it's going through doors, it's knocking down doors. And so this episode, as like all of our episodes, are sponsored by MEI, Making Education Intentional. Once again, we welcome you to another episode of Relate to This. I am Jay Tross. I'm sharing the stage with Dr. Siegfried Howe, who is, by all rights, a professional relationship coach. He is also a consultant, and he is able to bring to light those questions that we don't ask sometime. And he brings it in such a way that not only inspires us, but allows us to think as well. We want to remind you that we are. Um, I put something up there by accident, Dr. Howe. I forgot what show we was on, but I want to remind you that relate to this podcast on YouTube, on various platforms. We'll continue to tell you about that as we continue to grow this show. This is episode number 4.
Yes.
Number 4. And so we want you to kind of catch us on the fly on any of those social media platforms. Hey, Dr. Howe, let's get into our program tonight. Like every night that we broadcast, we like to set the stage to where we're going to go for the evening. But I want to set the stage like this. I'm going to actually jump right in because on our last episode, there were a couple questions that I was not able to get to, and really, this question is going to actually catapult us into today's episode. So I'm going to jump right in where we left off. And one that first question I want to ask you is how can we, and this is what happens in every family, right? In every family, you're not just marrying the woman or the man. You're not just marrying them. You're marrying into something bigger, right?
Yeah.
Something bigger. I mean, you have to worry about where you're going to have vacation for this Christmas, where you're going to be for this Thanksgiving, whose birthday parties are going to be here, and so it becomes stressful sometimes, right? So my question to start us out for the night, Dr. Howell, is how can we balance our lives with that of our extended family? How can we balance our lives with that of our extended family?
Well, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. That is the biggest thing that I'm going to bring to the table. So, for example, my wife and I are from different cultures. My family's in the Caribbean and she's American. And so most of the holidays we spend with her family.
Mm,
And so sometimes we say, hey, you know what? We're just going to stay local this time. I don't want to go out and, every single last holiday cannot be with family because sometimes you just want to rest,
right.
especially if family is out of town.
Mm,
And so you balance it by saying stuff like, okay, let's do my family this holiday, your family this holiday. But if my family is out of town and hers is local, or however your relationship would be. You kind of mix it up a little based on the money situation, based on the convenience situation, and then based on the chemistry that is involved. The research says that women act a lot like their mothers, good or bad. You have to figure out which part of that personality they want to get. But they say men don't normally act like their dads. Men tend to have their own personalities. And so a lot of times when you look at these soap operas and when you look at these different movies, you see that the mother-in-law is the one that is keeping a lot of stuff going. And so when you marry into a family, you have to check all those dynamics before you jump head first to make sure that you're capable of dealing with anything that might come up, and so the biggest thing for me is making sure you check ahead of time to see what type of dynamics that family is coming from. Then number two, make sure you set up boundaries so that all your holidays may not be lopsided.
Right.
And number three, make sure that people who are in your extended family don't have too much input into what you and your spouse or you and your partner are dealing with, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to leave and cleave and form your own tribe.
Right.
And so, yes, the extended tribe might have information that's pertinent that can help you. But once they bring that information in, you need to, you first have to make sure that that information is needed.
Right. Yeah.
Don't just take it and then say, well, my mother said or my father said. No.
Right.
See if extended information is needed first. And then if it is, you bring it in and then you meet and discuss it as a family. But don't take it as gospel, because when you get married, you're supposed to form your own tribe.
Right.
So that's how you take care of it, making sure you check your extended potential family to see if everything is copacetic. And then you set up boundaries so that you know what is good and what is not good, what is allowed and what is not allowed. And then make sure that you discuss stuff on a regular basis, and make sure you get in before you go out to get secondhand information. Make sure that you, not secondhand, but secondary information. Right. Make sure that both parties are okay with it, because family members don't necessarily give you the best information. They'll give you information that might be skewed based on their love for you and not necessarily based on logic. Or he's giving you a hard time, come back home.
Right.
When in actuality, you should work it out. And then if you give your family too much information, then the next time, you might forgive your partner, and you might forget what the partner has done, but your family is looking at your partner differently.
Right. Yeah.
Because of what you have done. And as that builds up over time, it's going to create some type of resentment between your partner and their in-laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't leave them, then they always have that secondary thing to say when arguments jump off, and they will bring stuff back from the past when you and your partner may not be drudging up old stuff. The in-laws might.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. So would you agree? That just possibly setting those boundaries could actually be a part or a key element within a healthy relationship?
Yes.
All right. So
you need to set those boundaries up before you even get too deep into it, because both people need to respect those boundaries and accept those boundaries, and then adhere to those boundaries when times come. Yeah. And if you mess up those boundaries, then you talk nicely to each other and work it out, and then reset the boundaries.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you said yes, because that led me into into my next question is, besides boundaries, what are some other key elements of what we would call a healthy relationship?
Oh, well, first of all, trust and respect. Now, I don't believe a lot of people put trust way too high on a relationship scale. I think that choosing the right person, committing to the right person, and connecting to the right person are more important than trust. If you get those three things down pat, the trust is going to come.
Right.
But you trust your bus driver, you trust your swimming instructor, you trust, the cops and the firemen to do their job. Trust is something that we throw around thinking that, but we trust a lot of people. We trust the guy that comes into our house and does work. We
Right.
trust that they're not going to steal as they're going out. So why do we put trust that high?
Right. Yeah.
Because we throw trust out all the time.
That's true.
And everybody that we throw trust out to isn't deserving of trust. So I think that commitment part of the relationship and that connection part of the relationship and choosing the right person, those three things should trump the trust factor, because if you have those three, the trust tends to fall in line.
Okay.
But if you focus on trust or lack of trust, if you're always looking for things that your partner's doing wrong, because your partner's not perfect, you will find stuff, or you will start to conjure up ideas in your head, and you will mess up the connection. You will mess up everything, the commitment part of it, because you're looking and focusing in the wrong direction. So I don't think trust is as important as those other three, but you also have to be accepting of each other's flaws. You have to be openly honest with the communication. You have to know each other's values. You also need to know each other's pitfalls or shortcomings or blind spots, so you can create value and add service to them to make sure that you have their back, so to speak.
Wow.
You should be able to talk in a critical way to them, but they not take it as an insult or a bash, or think that it's a personal attack on their personality. Just know you have their back, and this is a form of me telling you something so we can help each other grow. But on the flip side, if I can tell you what's negative about you and what you need to work on, I should also be accepting of that hard conversation with me. What's wrong with me, and how can you help me? Don't just show me all my faults, but don't give me any help or solutions.
Right.
Have my back. Mutual caretaking, like I said, having each other's back, knowing that person is committed to my well-being, if it's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, whatever. All of those different phases of my personality and of my being must be covered by a person who I know has my back.
Wow. That's pretty deep. And it's funny how like in science, right? The elements, right?
Yeah.
And you put these components together, these chemicals, and these together, and they create something. And so in this case, these key elements will help your relationship grow. It'll make it healthy. It'll make it long lasting. But what if I'm on the same line of science, but what if you mix the wrong chemicals together, right? And so you kind of lose that spark, if you will. You don't get that, it doesn't light.
Or you get too much spark.
Or you get too much over spark, right? So my question is, how can you maintain the spark in your relationship after time has passed? Sometimes in a relationship, you lose the spark, or you lose that edge, or something happens. How do you maintain the spark?
Well, the first thing, you have to find healthy ways of communicating. You have to schedule time to communicate. In this day and age, especially in the Western cultures, we put a lot of emphasis on a 9 to 5 and working hard to create a life, not knowing that life is going to pass you by. You're going to miss a lot of memories. How many fathers and mothers miss the recitals, the karate tournaments, and the parties and everything else, because we're too busy working. And when you look at some European countries, they work 5 hours a day.
Right. Yeah.
and we have a 8 hour a day, sometimes 9, 10 hour a day type schedule, and we
Yeah.
still struggling to make bills,
That's true.
struggling to pay bills. And so we have to maintain some time to each other, and sometimes it's difficult, but sometimes you have to say, hey, 1 hour a night, right before bedtime, I'm going to spend some time with you, or I'm going to spend half an hour with the kids and then an hour with you, or an hour with the kids and a half an hour with you. But you always have to do something. You always have to go on dates. And
Right.
there's this method called the 2-2-2 method. And some people throw a fourth two in there. Every 2 days, you have to come together to talk. Make sure that you talk, and not just talking on the fly, but deep talking.
Right.
You go down and dirty. So what's bothering you? What accomplishments have you achieved? How can I help you? And deep talking. And then every 2 weeks, you need to make sure that you go on a date. Some type of date away from the house, away from the kids, away from everything, so that you can bond away from the house. Because a lot of times when you're at home, you're still thinking about bills, you're still thinking about the kids, you might get distracted. But if you go off on a date, then you have that time to just focus on each other. And when you're on a date, get rid of the cell phones, get rid of all the the texts and the games and all that stuff. Actually look in each other's eyes, talk and communicate with each other. And then every 2 months, make sure you go on a overnight stay somewhere. You go to a hotel, you go away to a bed and breakfast, something. Just try and get away from the hustle and bustle. And then every 2 years, go on a major vacation.
Right.
That's how you keep the spark going, because research has shown us that the more memories we make, the more we build the connection together, the more trust, the more intimacy we build. So you want to make sure that you keep the passion going. You want to make sure you keep the intimacy going. And that is built by actively doing things together. And so one of the things that you can do is, with some of my clients, I tell them, hey, you know what? This, for the first 2 weeks, you pick where the next outing is going to be. The next 2 weeks, your partner picks where the outing is going to be.
Right.
And you can do stuff like painting. You can do the stress room, where you go in the room and just break stuff. You can do the escape room. You can go parasailing. You can go to the beach, learn to snorkel, learn to salsa, do different things. Learn how to give each other a massage, whatever you need to do, just learn stuff together.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful book that I love by Jay Shetty. The eight rules of relationships, or something like that. It's a book that came out this year, 2023. But I've read that book and I love that book. But he talks about entertainment being the lowest form of intimacy. Education, learning stuff together, is a higher form of intimacy. Going out and actually giving back to the world is even higher. So that's when you donate your time and your energy to the service of other people.
Right.
Experiences, and that's what we were talking about. Every 2 weeks, you go out and do that. So experience is even higher than the entertainment. And he said, if you're going to watch movies together, if you're going to watch shows together, put your cell phones up. Get rid of the computer, watch the show, and then at the end of the show, talk about what the takeaways were, what you learned, what you liked. So actually make it more involving, versus you sitting there watching TV while on your iPad or your iPhone or your tablet or your computer doing work or whatever. Because we do that a lot.
Right.
And then on a regular basis, like every night before you go to bed, write down in a journal, and I believe in journaling, write down 3 things you're thankful for. And one of those things should be what you're thankful for about your partner.
Right. Yeah.
And that allows us to become more positive in our thinking and in the way that we do stuff. And that makes life a little bit more interesting. And so if you're looking for things to like about your partner, it makes life a little bit more appreciative and you're more grateful about what you have. And once you appreciate the person that you're with, that's how you keep that spark going.
Awesome. Awesome. I like the 2-2-2 theory, the equation.
Yes.
2 plus 2 plus 2.
Mm-hmm. And there's a fourth too. If you want to go on a major vacation every 2 years, it definitely gives you time to save up and go away and do something.
And in that theory, to 2 plus 2 plus 2, because I was trying to add it all, make something real nice out of it. If I got the 4 2s, that's 8. And you look at that 8 sideways, like it's like a continual
infinity.
There you go.
There you go.
And then that keeps you nicely healthy in the relationship.
Yeah.
My next question to you is this. My next question is, in a lot of relationships, hurt is when you get hurt by your spouse, the person in a relationship with, it hurts more than somebody out on the streets. I mean, it hurts. I mean, it could be the same words, but from who it's from, it makes it all differently, right? So my question is, how do you handle conflict constructively without hurting each other?
The Quakers have this this interesting thing that they teach their students at their school. They call them the I messages, but basically I statements. And basically how it goes is this. Most people, when you're arguing, let's say I was arguing with you, I would say stuff like, man, you make me angry when you do this, and I just want to knock your head off. But the Quakers, they say, no, take ownership for your emotions and put it back on you. So you say stuff like, I feel angry when you do this. So I'm owning my anger. I'm owning my feelings. I feel sad when you do this. I don't feel appreciated when you continually ignore me. And so these I statements, you're taking ownership for your emotions or for your state, but you're also telling that other person what it is they did to hurt you. And so it's not attacking. When I say you always and you never, those are attacking and fighting words. And so now I'm waiting for you to shut up so I can rebuttal versus listening. So we need to take part in what is called active listening. I'm listening to understand and not listening to rebuttal. Right. One of the big things that I am a big fan of is try not to bring up the past. Once you've solved one problem and left it in the past, don't bring it up. And then number 2 to that is only argue about one thing at a time. If I come to you and talk to you about, the dog ate my shoes, and I'm upset because those were my favorite shoes, and I think you moved them. That is not the time for you to say, well, I moved them because they were in the way and I tripped over last week and I didn't want to say nothing, but you're a slob. And that's not your time to talk about my problems because I came to you. So we need to address my issue. Once we finish with my issue, then we can address whatever issue. But a lot of times when people are arguing, I bring up one thing and I kept this thing in my pocket from a month ago, waiting for you to bring up something, and I was going to throw this heavy one at you. If it was 2 months ago, you should have brought it up 2 months ago. Don't bring up stuff from 2 months ago. If it wasn't big enough for you to bring it up then, don't bring it up now. So that brings me to my third point, which is bring up things in a timely manner when it's still fresh, when we can still remember all the specificities of what happened. Because if you wait 2-3 months and I'm like, I don't remember doing that. And it could have been, yes, it could have happened, but because it wasn't as important to you, to me as it was to you, I may not remember all of the details. And now I'm looking at it as a personal attack. The fourth thing, when people tell you how what you did makes them feel, validate their emotions. Don't trivialize their emotions. Because if you want that person to respect you, your feelings, and your sayings, you must also validate and respect their feelings and their things. And then the fifth thing, focus on the problem and not the person. If you know you love that person, work on the problem. But don't say, I hate you, because once you start using words that you can't take back, I hate you because of this, and I hate you because you made me feel this way. But why? Now you're attacking the person and not the problem.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then apologize when, if you're wrong and you know you're wrong, apologize. Sometimes you could be right, but you still apologize because of the hurt that the whole situation caused each other. There's nothing wrong with apologizing when both you all are down and out, because you're supposed to have each other's back. Conflict does not have to be I win, you lose, or you win and I lose.
Right.
Conflict should be we both win because we both solve the problem.
Right.
So we let go of grudges and move forward. When you say stuff like, yeah, I want to see if you're going to do it again, you're already judging me. And you said you forgive and forgot. So don't say stuff like that, knowing full well that you're looking for the negative. Because if you look for the negative, you're going to find negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Last but not least, if you can't work it out with the two of you all, don't call a family member, call a professional, a neutral participant to listen to see what you can do to solve your problem.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that is a good place to end. And I had a few more questions, but I think it's going to take us a lot longer to dig deep into those.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hold on to those. But I think you kind of ended us at a good point, right?
Yeah.
If all else fails, please seek a professional that can intercede, that can be the mediator between, you hate to say between right and wrong, but between right and wrong and wrong. You know what I mean? Somebody in there that's, help you, come up with a rational decision or rational answers. Because sometimes when we do it on our own, our decisions sometimes can be focused on the immediate here and now, but not the long term. And that's what we're going to be dealing with in our next episode. Our next episode is the long-term relationship. What does that look like? Where do we go from there? So, Dr. Howe, listen, man, these nuggets that you be giving us, man. I mean, where can we find some of this stuff? I mean, is some of it within your books? I mean, where can our audience find some of this stuff?
You know what? I have a book that I just sent out. Well, I just published on Amazon. And this particular book, it's been finished for like the last 4 months, but I just didn't feel like editing it, or it took a while to edit. So I took the last 4 months to kind of edit it. But it's called The Peace Method.
The Peace Method
to Happiness in Relationships.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon. And the best way to find my books on Amazon is to type in my name, Siegfried Howell Books. And then you scroll through the whole thing and you find which one works for you. But this relationship book, it talks about the peace method. And so we can talk more about what the peace method is later on. But it's not what you think it is.
Okay. All right. We're going to see.
But it's an acronym.
All right. Well, run out and get that book on Amazon. Immediately. We'll talk more about it on next week too. We'll hopefully have a copy of it to look at. But go out and get that. Go to Amazon. As Dr. Howe said, you can go to Amazon, type in Siegfried Howe Books, and you'll see the amount of books that are out there. And it's probably, if you go in, it's probably listed from oldest to newest, or newest to oldest, or alphabetized, or by SKU number, whatever it is. But go check out Dr. Siegfried Howe on Amazon.
Now, the next place you can find me, if you just ignore the doctor part and you go to www.siegfriedhowell.com and you go to the blog section, I have about 20 to 30 different blogs about relationships that would help you in various different facets of your relationship.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Dr. Howe, thank you so much for joining us again tonight here with Relate to This with Dr. Siegfried Howe and Jay Tross. And we look forward to seeing you and you seeing us and hearing us on our next episode. Good night to each of you.
Good night, everyone.